YouTube is going to boot up. There we go. YouTube is booted up. Why am I so much clearer and brighter on Facebook than on YouTube? Like I look at the Facebook, right? The same interface, same lighting, same camera. It's like it's all clear and bright, and it's all pixelated and dark on YouTube. I'm just saying. YouTube, fix your stuff. Step your game up, YouTube, because it is total, does not even look like the same screen between my two streams here. But hey, everybody, it's Jason Blaha here getting my first cardio session in. Starting a little later. I slept in a hair later, got some other stuff done real quick. But yeah. Yep. So hopefully we get a good stream this morning. We did a good okay yesterday. One of them got better views than the other. We got one super chat, so we'll take the win. All right, we'll take the win there. And, hopefully a lot more to come. But while we're waiting, let's see if we can post anything. All right. So maybe post some jokes in the meantime. All right. Make a couple posts while we get this cardio going. And we hopefully get some morning people in here. There's a few people watching already on the YouTube. No comments yet. I don't feel like turning on the light and wasting all that. Wasting my light bulbs in here that I only use for these. Right? Because it's normally bright. I have my computer. It's my office. So again, just chat with my people. What's funny though, it's so much brighter on and clearer on Facebook than on YouTube. I digress. So again, let's get the first cardio done. Like I said, I'm not going as crazy hard on all this list. I'm like, if I get a couple hours a day, we're good because we're doing the other jogging. I've been doing pull-ups and some other just stuff. Again, just maintaining that. I've actually realized when I had the overuse issues from chin-ups, not necessarily the pull-ups. I was doing something I've looked at closely. So I feel like just doing some dead hang pull-ups every day just sets a 10 to 12 body weight. It's actually feels really good. Feels really good in my shoulders and everything. I feel like it just crackles a lot of stuff into place. So probably something I want to keep doing, especially, if I want to just do more pronated bicep stuff in general. I don't think it's going to be bad at all. All right. So, all right, hold on. A couple of things here. All right. Then I'll tab back over and let's see if we got people in here yet. Only 3 people viewing. Come on, where's my regulars at? So guys, again, I'm going to get in. I'm going to probably do an hour or so here. It might go over whatever yesterday. So the main thing is I just want to make sure I get at least 2 hours of listen on non-training days, minimum of an hour on the bike. On training days, we're scaling that back a bit, but I'm also doing more sled work. I've taken up the barefoot jogging and just adding some extra body weight stuff every day in addition to my normal 3 really long workouts. So again, just a good combination of cardio types and strength training types, because for the lifting, what do? I do training maxes, I do rep work, then we do jumping, and we do sled work. So we're kind of getting a whole GPP and explosiveness in with the heavy work and the hypertrophy work. So again, just chasing well-balanced fitness, which is kind of going to be a lot of what I'm wanting to do these days. I'm not trying to promote any one aspect of fitness, not trying to promote extreme powerlifting or anything else to the extreme. Let's just back. I say that people are like, dude, you're running around squatting 500 pounds and almost 50 years old. Running barefoot, that's pretty extreme. It's not really though, guys. It's just fitness. But the point is not taking anything as the highest priority, meaning we can have all these things, right? We can have all these things. And it's like I was chatting with a guy yesterday. I've done a couple different consultations with over time. He's in medical school. He's trying to get finished up there. And we did a consultation call yesterday. That's what I had said. I'm at a point where for me, I am defining as fitness. Here's what I'm going to define as being truly fit, right? What are we going to define as being truly fit? I might need to put this in the community tab. because we're not getting anybody in here. That seemed to have picked it up yesterday. Right. And then I'll go into what I mean by fitness. What did it just do? Why does it do stuff like that? Hold on. Problem with the keyboard on the bike. All right, let's try that. So last time I did that, that started kicking people in immediately. All right, so posted it to the community tab on the YouTube. Potty meat. Right, lady. Okay, not really, dude. Let's just stick to fitness. All right, if you would like to, let's stay on topic, please. So what is it that I kind of told him? To me, what I'm defining as true fitness, are you strong? And we can define strong as a 1 rep max, right? You have a solid amount of muscle mass. So again, hypertrophy work, right? You have good body composition. Are you pretty lean? You have abs or close to abs, right? Are you explosive? Are you conditioned? So again, combination of endurance and the jogging and stuff I'm trying to do right now, right? And do you have good blood work? Those are the 6 things that I'm going to say, are going to really define fitness. And part of that is going to be physique. Part of it's going to be strength. And if you go back and you look at the old school, physical culture people and those earlier bodybuilders, they were all of those things, right? Physical fitness, physical culture embodied all of that. And they did believe that, hey, that you should look good. You should have an attractive physique. You should be strong. You should be athletic. The athletic would be defined as, are you explosive and are you conditioned, right? So these are the things that we're looking at. This is what we're looking for. And for me, more and more, that is how I am defining fitness. And so I'm trying to do all of my stuff. So rather than, I started saying that a while back. So in this case, it's not a case of Jason doing and then repeating, well, what I'm doing is best. No, it's me having said this already. Hey, this really is what fitness is about. That's what true fitness is. And then me saying, you know what, now I have to live up to my own standards. And yeah, I stake by stuff like that dad bod strength standard. But it's like funny when I bring that up, I had a follower post even on Facebook. Well, none of that mean that dad bod strength standard. It doesn't mean anything. He's like, if you don't fight, like we said about being a trained fighter, and you have no conditioning. Like, okay, but no one said that we shouldn't have those, but we need those things. So it's like, it's kind of funny every time you bring up, different standards, people will include the others. And it's kind of funny to me as someone who is promoting all of these different standards that we should have all these things. Then anytime you mention one of them, someone will chime in with, well, it doesn't mean anything if you don't have whatever. And it's like, disagree. Actually, I disagree with the fighting thing. This is 2025. Right? We're not in the Stone Ages. So we can kick that one out the door. And I'm sorry to people who don't like this, but most of my audience is American. 70% to 75% of my audience on YouTube is American. 87% of my audience on Facebook is American. I'm just going to say, you don't need to fight. We're all strapped. All right. So set that aside though. But yeah, we should have all of those things. I always find it comical though, when people make the counter argument, well, you have to have them, like, but I say that we need these different things. It's not like I'm not saying it. But we do need to have individual standards on that stuff. I don't know. I mean, I could probably literally include a 5K time into that dad bod strength standard. I don't know what it needs to be. I'm gonna need to put some thought into it. But then we're no longer at a strength standard. We're then at, hey, the dad bod fitness standard. Right? We go from strength to the whole fitness standard, not just the strength. I think people miss that when you're setting a strength standard. It's kind of like if someone asks, what's your 5K time? And then everyone replies, well, 5K time doesn't mean anything if you can't squat 500 pounds. Well, yeah, no, it still has a meaning. Yo, coach, what's up? How are you? I'm doing good, man. I'm not fully as awake as I'd like to be. I'm hoping we'll get some good conversation in here there. How you doing? I'm just bored. We're getting this first cardio session did. This one seems slower lately on, like the second one seems to do better each day. When I do them in the early mornings and non-training days, right? You know. But yeah, so, but all the stuff that we do, it should be geared towards, you know, athleticism and fitness. And I mean, form follows function, you know. I think people forget that. And that's kind of the point I've been making. Yeah, I've been saying, look, we should have good physiques. Absolutely. But why do all these really athletic guys who are lean have great physiques? I don't think doing a great physique means you have to try to isolate every muscle. I think having a great physique means you just need to have well-balanced musculature. That's its own topics too. I've been digging, you know, further into literature. And what shocks me is when you start looking at meta-analysis and overviews of even research, how many of these evidence-based guys keep promoting trying to isolate everything. Like that's not even an evidence-based approach. We're back to bodybuilding, high steroid dose bro approach. Like that's not even based on evidence. Like there's not evidence that isolating a muscle causes it to grow more. And I think why so many of them promote it is because they keep buying into the ultra high volume fad, you know, from the Brad Schoenfeld circles. Right, to where they're really believing you need 30 sets of muscle group. Well, yeah, you're not going to do 30 sets of squats in a week. So do you see what we're saying? You're not going to do 30 sets of pull-ups. Well, you might. But I digress. You see the point we're making there. So then, of course, they need to isolate everything. If they're going to spend 5 hours a day in the gym 6 days a week and get 30 sets of body part. So that seems like that's almost the reason. It's not that they even have evidence of that. I mean, I was looking at one of the other channels who does research reviews, because I don't watch YouTube Fitness, but he just comes through this stuff. And he did a whole breakdown of multiple studies and meta-analysis on this. And going back to the ones, it's like we really only have a couple of studies ever that even support what I said for a long time. Yeah, heavy work followed by pump work, you know, big movement followed by isolation. Most of the studies don't even support that. The only one that really does is that one showing extensions after bench press or long head of the tricep, right? But you also have to look at that and go, what if they had picked exercises that work the long head? Well, what if they had done a bunch of pull-ups and some dips in there that do work the long head? Would that have been a different study? You know, that's like all that we have really. Is that if you do bench press as your main tricep compound, that extensions like skull crushers will add more long head. Outside of that, it's not supported. I mean, we had all those studies, multiple studies that looked at lat pull downs, followed by curls. And adding curls to the lat pull downs didn't cause more bicep growth. Studying those two groups, you know, so what do we even say about that? So, and I'm not saying that the research is conclusive, because I'm very critical of exercise science research, particularly in regards to muscle growth. So let me be clear. But when these guys are saying evidence-based, the evidence doesn't actually support that curls add more muscle if you do lat pull downs or pull-ups first. And I'm not even talking underhand growth. All they really have is showing that curls cause slightly more muscle growth than dumbbell rows. They've got evidence for that, but they don't have any evidence at all that curls beat lat pull downs. Right? The studies that looked at that, what did they find? Because again, they weren't strong enough to do pull-ups yet. Lat pull down causes as much as a curl. And then if you double up and do both, it still doesn't cause any more. So that's what their evidence shows. And I'm not saying I support that or telling you to do lat pull downs only for your biceps by any means. I'm just saying if people are going to claim Well, they're basing what they're saying off of studies and research. Well, that research doesn't support your conclusions. What you're saying is not based on research. You're saying it's based on your opinion. But again, we could also speculate that, again, if volumes are high enough, does it matter? It's like I've always said, especially when multiple exercises come in. It's just something I've said a long time. I think it could still be applied to this. If training volumes get high enough, or you're doing multiple exercises to hit a muscle, what exercises you pick probably doesn't matter. In other words, if you did enough pull-ups and pronated or hammer grip rows, it probably is still going to maximally stimulate the biceps eventually once you reach a certain number of hard work sets, no matter what. Otherwise, I can't even explain the results I had. And technically, I think my arms were bigger when I wasn't doing any arm work, really, and doing nothing supine. And then all these years of doing curls, my arms aren't bigger for it. Curls to failure. And people are like, well, you're not progressively overloading. Well, you can't progressively overload, dude. When you add weight and you drop to 6 reps, you can't really do that unless you want to curl 5s and 6s. So, but they did get stronger, but it was still, and that's just what I would point out to people who followed me for these years. Can anyone objectively say, man, Blaha didn't do curls and then he did tons and tons and hundreds of sets of curls for several years and his arms grew like an inch or 2. Can anybody did that happen? Or are they really no bigger than they were when I just did pull-ups? Just throwing that out there, And had I just continued to do more pull-ups and rows, but I did potted, right? So you said get it up to 130. So potted, how? How would you suggest that I take an exercise that's at a certain thing that took me years to get to a certain weight and to increase it another 50%? That's not how it works. You want me to just do 1 rep maxes and cheat curls? Do you see the point? You can only progressively overload an isolation movement at the rate the muscle's already growing. Like, you do understand this, right? That's like me telling you, hey, just get your bench up to 500 pounds. Potted. So if you want a bigger chest, your bench is stuck at 315, right? 300. We'll just get it to 500 pounds. You'd be like, it took me 18 years to get to 315. So that's the point. People who look at certain things with progressive overload, you only progressive overload at the rate the muscle is growing. I mean, I used to do cheat curls with that much. I've done cheat curls with 185, but a totally strict barbell curl where I bring it all the way in the front like I'm doing, dude, 85 pounds for like sets of 8 to 10 took me 2 years to build to. Keep in mind, that is a buildup. So if you're saying it wasn't a significant, I mean, I went from like 65 pounds to 85 pounds. That's pretty significant. So, right. That's something like a 25% increase as an advanced lifter on the movement. That would be the equivalent of taking your bench from 300 to 400 and saying it's not that much, right? There you go, DJ, tell them like that stream. So again, you need the context for it. But also keep in mind, I'm also not doing a cheaty type curl. A lot of guys do. Those curls are out in front of me. And I'm doing them the hard way. Pulling rows enough for biceps when Natties do only these movements and have massive arms and great physiques. Yep, and that is a good point, Carol. That was the point I was making. The people are arguing that I didn't train them hard enough. So all these sets of curls to failure I've been doing for years, and you guys have watched me go to failure and fail reps, and like, really? I think I would have seen some growth. You would think my arms would be an inch bigger than they were from just the pull-ups 8 or 9 years ago. Yeah, which pretty much is what I've done, DJ. I pretty much overtrained them, especially the supine position movements, and I think that's what's caused the shoulder situation. I'm going to take all that out, and I'm going to do nothing but compound movements and non-supine grips for them for just a bit. Yeah, your dad. I can't either, DJ. That's the point. So, but I'm at a point where there's no pain, and that's been that way a while. So it's like, I'm just going to let all that heal and then see if I can get that to return. Because honestly, it didn't gain me any bicep, and it lost the ability to overhead press. That overhead press, I think, is a fairly important movement pattern. So I'm just going to leave that alone and go back to doing what I was doing for my biceps when they were arguably bigger 8 or 9 years ago. And I could overhead press 225 routinely, just straight up strict pressing. Because maybe we need to be back to doing that. Right? I mean, so, right. So I think that's really what I need to do. Because, hey, let's get back to where I can overhead press my body weight for reps. How about we get there? How about we get back to where I can strict press 225 or more? I think that would be more important than trying to do a bunch of curls that didn't do anything. I feel like I can just live on pull-ups and dips and pressing, and a little bit of rowing. I think we'll be good. All right, and get restoration of that movement pattern. That's the reason also a lot of Olympic lifters don't do any direct bicep work. I mean, it makes sense when we start looking at what happened and when I lost the ability to go overhead. It was when I started doing bunches of supine work, because it was also happened during that chin up. Please note, not pull up. I was doing 100 chin ups a day. Plus, I've been doing lots of different curls. Right? A lot of Olympic lifters do not do direct bicep work at all because they feel it affects their overhead position. So I need to be able to do that. I need to be able to get that range of motion restored. I need to be able to lock a strict press, a push press. Hell, I'd love to be able to do snatches and cleans again. Because again, are we going to be athletic? Right? But Bugenhagen did videos. Yeah, he did do that. Bugenhagen absolutely made videos saying that. You know, literally, like, why are you going to do a concentration curl? You can do pull-ups. I am. Okay, do JM presses and overhead extensions in the same session? Sure, hypothetically. I mean, if you're wanting to do a bunch of extra isolation, I mean, you could do, there's nothing preventing you from doing 2 isolation movements in a workout. We could argue there may be a lot of redundancy there. I would argue that if you're going to isolate anything, we probably don't need more than 1 isolation unless we have a really good reason, a specific weak point you really need to highlight visually, you know. I mean, like I do with Matthias, people are like, you have to do 2 types of curls. Yeah, but he only hits his arms once a week total. The squat and the bench press are the best 2 workouts of all time, maybe. I really do like dips a lot, though, for the same muscles as the bench. But, you know. But yeah, they bring a lot to the table. I did kind of say not long ago that really the person only did 3 movements. If they did nothing but heavy squats, weighted dips, weighted pull-ups, would most guys be pretty jacked? Do you do overhead? Silverback, what do you mean? Do you mean, am I trying to be able to overhead press again? Yeah, one of my goals is to get that bicep inflammation down enough that I have full and open subacromial process so that I can overhead press a broomstick first. So my first goal, silverback, on my overhead press specialization, I don't know why you asked me that, is to be able to overhead press a broomstick or a PVC pipe for a full rep, right? You're like, but coach, you rep out heavy inclines. It still doesn't mean I can lift my arms over my head. So my first goal is a broomstick. I feel like once I can overhead press a broomstick, I'm back, right? Once we get there, man, we're cooking with gas. I'm not there yet, but I'm going to see what happens over the next couple of weeks of seeing if I can get the bicep long head inflammation completely gone. And hopefully there's no scar tissue. Slowly back to range of motion. Right. So I have to get the range of motion back because me doing this ain't going to cut it. I need to be able to at least get the bar past my eyes. That's my first goal too. So I'd like to get the bar to at least the top of my head. Before we can overhead specialize silverback, I need to be able to get the bar above my forehead. Right. So I want to lock a full broomstick first. That's why I don't work. But I mean, really, we did see that first situation occur during the chin-up experiment, right? Which again, supine position overuse. Yep. And that's been a big frustration with my movement patterns because I do love the overhead press and I de-emphasize it because I can't do it. But realistically, we all know the overhead press is great. Even though I'm like, since I can't overhead press, I'm not going to discuss it or emphasize it, but a lot of my clients still do it. You guys notice that? I literally have clients who have strong as hell overhead presses and we train it. But the reality is, because I have not physically been able to do it anymore, I've de-emphasized it. And subconsciously that I feel like that's a cope. So how about I just call myself out? We're allowed to call ourselves out, right? Have you ever tried to get your shoulders really big? What do you mean? Of course, obviously. Good morning, because I have a question for you today. Do you have any recommendations on what percent of our use for back offsets? No? What are you trying to do with them? So I've done it a million different ways. I mean, DJ, I used to have a shoulder day in here. I mean, I think my shoulders are pretty big. Or do you mean bodybuilder big? I'm not willing to do that. Right. I want to just lift weights to build the muscle. I want muscle tissue only. I feel like it worked pretty good. Yeah. So you do know the average fitness influencer, when you look at them, you can tell they side enhance their shoulders. I don't want to eject my shoulders. Right. Oh, well, DJ it is, but okay. No, just to train them. Just get them big. Okay, when we say, okay, DJ, I think you misinterpreted. Really big relative to someone who doesn't lift weights. We're not saying that you need to be what all these influencers are now doing and what even competitive men's physique and bodybuilders do, right? We're not telling you to go that far. Makes sense? Like you think you're misinterpreting. I meant just lifting weights. Hey, Alan, if it's genetic, then how come I used to strict press 225 all the time and lock it? It's obviously not. If it was genetic, why did it not kick in until I was like 44? Well, not even just gear, but oil, right? Right. DJ, disclaimer, and I don't want to keep having to bring this up. I am on a replacement dose of testosterone. But let me be clear, I am inside the reference range. So if my blood work, I don't want to publish blood work. I really don't. But my blood work will show me in the reference range. So you can count that however you want. If you want to count that as gear, that's your prerogative. Up to you, dude. But what I'm not going to do is inject a gram of testosterone into each of my delts every week. You know what I mean, dude? And I think guys are forgetting that. And even a lot of these 160, 170 pound influencers and men's physique guys have a ton of oil in their shoulders. Like you can look at them and see it. It's actually becoming the norm. Is that the same restrictions elbow lock? So Alan, step back and think about everything I've said on this in the last week and all the different videos. Right? The elbow lock, the shoulder, what do they all have in common? What one muscle is tied into all of it, like I've been discussing in the vlogs and the live streams the last week. After I looked at close, I've had other people say, hey, I really do think this is what's going on. And I didn't want to listen. And then I did more and more digging. I'm like, man, this is really a common problem. It's literally the reason a lot of Olympic lifters do zero supine bicep work of any type ever. It's the reason Matt Winning says don't do anything supine grip for your biceps ever. Not your pull-ups, not chin-ups, not curls. It's for that reason. So the biceps is the one muscle involved. If you think about with the elbow lockout and the overhead, which one muscle is involved? Biceps. So it's biceps. So, I mean, and it makes sense because I used to lock overhead. You guys have seen me do like triples with 205. I've done 225 at least 12, 13 times on camera. I've done 227.5 for a full lockout strict press off my chest. Right? Done all this on camera years ago. I got that first impingement while doing chin-up experiment. Let's do 100 chin-ups every day. I got to like 4 weeks in and started having shoulder issues and other stuff. And then started getting impingements, but I've continued to do tons of supine grip bicep work. I did none of that back when I had the strong overhead press. In fact, I didn't even isolate my biceps at all, other than hammer curls sometimes. I was doing neutral or overhand grip pull-ups, rows for years, and I didn't have any of those problems. So it makes sense. Your reference allow exceptions of lock for those. What do you mean? And it's not your shoulder doesn't affect elbow lock, right? Talking about impact. I need you to be specific. What sport? Because if we're talking about overhead pressing, then what sport? There's a couple of sports. There's 3 sports with overhead pressing. And I don't know. Probably not. Like you can't Olympic lift with that. If you can't lock out, you can't compete in weightlifting at all. But as far as powerlifting, yeah. The refs made exceptions for me on the lockout. Yeah, there's rules in place. In fact, they tell you at the rules meeting. I mean, every powerlifting meet you've been to, Alan, the big ones, right? For the big feds, don't they tell you at the rules meeting? Or do you skip the rules meeting? Are you one of those dicks who skips the rules meeting? That's bad form, dude. You have to go to the rules meeting or else you look like a dick. All right. That's just bad etiquette. They tell you that at the rules meeting. I tell you the whole procedure if you have a knee or an elbow that doesn't lock. Every time, every meet. Thoughts on a 505 kilogram deadlift? I mean, it's an insane feat of strength, but you know how I feel about wearing the 40K power armor and calling it lifting. Like, did he jump up and go for the emperor with before he lifted it? I'm not saying it's not a crazy feat of strength. I'm just saying this. That's my problem with Strongman. I made that post about it the other day. You saw it probably. I don't know. You might have saw it, Scott. That's my issue with Strongman. They've taken what really, in theory, should be just a ridiculously amazing sport. Like, the concept behind Strongman is amazing. Right? Look at the idea behind it. You're like, wow, that's awesome. But then they put power armor on them. We're going to be a mech warrior. And that one guy trying to pretend like he deadlifts more than me, whatever, outweighing me by 50 pounds. And he's like wearing a multiply suit and figure 8 straps. It's like, Jesus Christ, dude. He's like all waddling out there for the emperor. You know, like, dude, throw some shorts on and some chalk and rip it. Flo, I've seen that your loose skin improving over time is getting as lean as possible. The only solution other than surgery. No, the collagen supplements don't work. They've been debunked. Right? Getting really lean is probably your best solution. Because how many of the people still, after the surgery, you know, it's still not right because they're still carrying too much fat. Like, they still don't have the physique they want till they diet down. So really getting lean, I've known of people who've done really well with getting lean. I mean, you're going to have stretch marks and stuff still, but the skin does seem to tighten on people who, when we say lean, we're talking shredded. Scott, appreciate the super chat, man. Thank you so much. If they outweighed you by 59 pounds, is his lifespan going to be much shorter? Does fasting help? I don't know about the outweigh you. Does fasting help? I know a lot of people who think fasting helps with loose skin. I've had a lot of people tell me they've had it help. I've been fasting. I mean, I feel like it's helped, but that's anecdote. We don't have evidence of that. But does fasted cardio help you get leaner over time? The answer is yes. If you're getting leaner over time, we're in a good place. I mean, I'm fasted now. I don't eat till noon or later. I might try to push it to 1 o'clock today. I started noon yesterday because I had an hour and a half long consultation in the afternoon. But yes, Scott, I appreciate it, brother. Thank you so much for the super chat. Always a good supporter in here. So again, that already makes this stream worthwhile financially for me. Do you think a 10 to 14 day water fast? No. Do not go more than 24 hours without protein. Full stop. All you're doing is losing muscle. There's no evidence to even show this is beneficial. I think that's nonsense. And I like fasting. 24 hours is your cap without protein. Do not exceed that. To what extent does barbell rows work with teres muscle in your opinion? It's a primary mover. Like, it's about the teres major and all that. Yeah, it's a primary mover, dude. Of course it works. I don't think that's a matter of opinion either, right? So my opinion would be really irrelevant, right? So that would be like asking, hey, Jason, what's your opinion? Does the bench press work the anterior deltoids? Well, it's not really subject to opinion, is it? So to I guess a better way to answer that, can you create a hypothetical scenario where that muscle wouldn't get a high degree of activation on a row? Could you create some version of the barbell row that took it out? If you really think about it, like, step back and think about it. Could you remove it from the barbell row? Could you find some way to not make it get a high degree of stimulus? like some angle, some grip that would take it out. No, you wouldn't be able to, right? If it works the tears, because that's a really small muscle. No. Why would it give you the same width? Do you think your back width comes from that muscle? It's your lats. You do understand how dramatically bigger the lats are than that smaller muscle, right? That's where your width comes from. Lats, lats, lats. I'm not saying barbell rows don't work lats pretty well, but I think pull-ups are going to win out. Push come to shove in a head-to-head. Now, that being said, the wide flare in the upper back, no, it's really not. No. I like that training economy with focus on compounds, right? Yep. But again, then we come back over to athletes, because they all look just as good as the natural bodybuilders, don't they? Just saying. I mean, and even though people will bring up some mild enhancement, because there's going to be some mild enhancement with the CrossFit Games, they can't be juiced to the gills. People brought that up. They're like, they're juiced to the gills. I'm like, they can't be. Anyone who's ever done significant amounts of gear already knows there is no way they're competing in those games on heavy doses. Anyone who's ever done steroids can tell you this hands down. Only a natural is ever going to say, oh, yeah, man, those CrossFit Games guys are juiced to the gills, right? You can tell that is someone who has never used steroids in their entire life. You know that for a straight up fact. But I really, DJ, I don't want to go into a lot of gear talk anymore. I'm on Facebook also. I'm streaming on both platforms. Like that could cause me problems. So I'm not really going to discuss gear to that degree. So again, someone is a natural, straight, full lifetime natty when they say something like that. It's a dead giveaway. They really think they're going to do all that conditioning work on a gram of gear. Like, yeah, you have lost your mind. Or they're going to do it on trend, right? Can you imagine anyone who's done gear is already laughing? Can you imagine trying to compete in the CrossFit Games on trend? Bitch, they better bring a medic because you're going to be passed out, dying on the ground, flopping like a fish before you make it through the first set of events. Like they're literally going to have to carry you out, giving you oxygen. Or can you imagine using Anavar and trying to do those events? Oh my God. You're like, my back cramped, I can't walk, I'm paralyzed. Be flopping on the ground in pain, but your back is spasmed. I've been definitely used for the Batman. But let's come over to the point I was going to make with the CrossFit Games. Objectively speaking, look at the CrossFit Games in a year, it's just the men standing there, and compare it to any Mr. Olympia lineup for the past 20 years. And tell me, visually speaking, probably what everyone in the world outside of fringe bodybuilding culture, ask any person, whether even someone who works out a little bit or someone who doesn't work out, any general population, those lineups, who has better physiques? Lee Haney was more than 20 years ago, Scott. So you take the Olympia lineup, all the way, including the current classic, for the past 20 years, and you put it side by side to any of the men from the men's CrossFit Games, and ask anybody who has better physiques, who has better bodies. What's the answer going to be? Any one of you, go ask your girlfriend, ask your wife, ask your mom, ask your sister. Show them a picture. You can pick any year of the Olympia, the lineup versus the CrossFit game, to say, hey, which of these photos of the men have better physiques and better bodies? It's going to be the CrossFit 99% of the time. So Jason, I've started doing just 3 lifts every day, rows, weighted dips, and barbell squats. I think I would be good to add those a natural. I mean, you may want a little more than that, but those are good choices, right? So that's why, are you worried about doing pull-ups? I mean, I like barbell rows, but what is your specific reason for not doing pull-ups? I mean, it fits really well with those other two, just saying. But I mean, those are not bad choices. You get a lot of economy out of that. Mr. Olympic is now about the freak show factor. How can you stretch the human physique without dying? And they're kind of failing on that, aren't they? I think dead hangs are good too, DJ. I did tons of them. They still didn't fix my shoulder situation, which tells me it's the bicep also. But Alan, they're kind of failing on that, aren't they? It's how far can they press the limits of muscle size, or not even muscle, external dimensions of a muscle, because they're filling them full of junk too, right? It's not all muscle. Without dying, but yet they are dying. See, but Ronnie Coleman didn't die. You're right, man. Ronnie Coleman didn't die. He was successful in winning it without dying. You guys are right. He's doing really well too. Correct. He didn't die from it. Ziz died at 22 years old. I mean, here's the thing, DJ. People are like, Ziz is a legend, and I get where they're coming from, right? But, and I'm like, well, why? They're like, well, he has lots of sex. I've had some guys say that. I'm like, I've had sex more times than Ziz. I've been married twice. I have 2 ex-wives. One of them has passed away, by the way. Rest in peace. But I've been married twice. Mathematically, you already know there's no way. You see what I'm saying? He died at like 22 years old. He didn't start getting girls till he was an adult. That's not very long. DJ, the first few years you do, right? Usually the first year or two, it's every day. Right? Pretty much 7 days a week. So kind of see the point I'm making. Ryan, good morning. What's up? Ryan, I need to get you a sheet later today, don't I? We had some good lifts this week. That's coming along well. So, do the math on that. You can do that many times. He probably did it less than 1,000 times. Less than 1,000 times in his whole life. You know what I'm saying, guys? That's kind of like benching 75 pounds and talking about you worked out. Just going to say. So, but he was a legend to a certain group, a certain demographic of younger guys, and I get it. And here's the thing I'll leave with that. Whatever negative stuff we want to say, we could set aside and go, how many guys got into lifting because of him? Probably a lot. So rather than speak ill of the dead in this case, here's what I'm going to say. Was his net impact positive? I'm going to say, yeah. Even though we could say some negatives and be like, the silly kid died at 22. What in the hell was he thinking? You know, silly kid, because he was. He really was. And that's a tragedy to die that young. It really is. Some bad life choices, obviously. But did he leave a net positive effect on the world? And I'm going to say he did. Mainly because he went out, dude, he was 22. 22 is not your prime. Just stop. I'm sitting here about to turn at 49 this year. You're talking about his prime. Oh my God. All right, back over to this. It's tragic, but he had a net positive effect. Weight is down slightly. Good job, Ryan. Good job. You know, but that's what I would say. I feel bad for this, but he wasn't that strong or big. No disrespect. He definitely wasn't for the gear he used. But to be fair, he didn't have that much training time, Scott. I mean, dude, he'd only been working out a couple of years. I think maybe 3. I think he died within 3 years of starting lifting. So, I mean, we do need a context, but I think it does show the power of Tren and Quinn, right? Because he used a pretty hefty dose of Tren in his admitted stacks. And he stayed on Tren pretty much year round. And Tren's pretty potent stuff. So I think that the point people would make is for a guy using those type of doses, they're like he wasn't very big or very strong. I mean, example, if I did Ziz's stack, I'd probably be squatting 550 within 10 to 12 weeks. Like straight up. I'd be squatting 550 while still cutting. I'd probably be benching 385 to 400 within a few months. There's your context for people who don't understand his doses, because I know what his stack was. He wrote it all out publicly while he was alive. Yeah. I mean, it was pretty, I would consider relatively hefty for a noob. Right? Now, his stack would probably kill me at my age. It would be a death sentence. But my lifts would go up. Surely it's best to have a good body and live to an old age instead of people going far too early, because you know what? Yeah, exactly, Simon. Sam Saluka's about the same age as he is when he died. You can see that. Yeah. I mean, Sam's not going to make it long term. I mean, go back and look a year or two ago. Look at the side effects we already saw with Sam. Like, as someone who's, you guys remember, I'm the prophet of calling out the deaths of people. I did not like what I saw in Sam a year ago. And I said that, I'm like, I'm already seeing some really scary signs. He does not have the genetics to do this. He's not Ronnie Coleman. You know? And when you say that, fans will get upset, but I'm like, it's not a disrespect to this kid. But he's a kid. We were all dumb as kids. We did dumb stuff. It doesn't make him a bad person. Because I don't believe Sam is a bad person. Like, my genuine perception of Sam is that he's probably a pretty decent human being. Right? Like, my gut instinct observing him, he seems like a good guy. I don't know him personally, but if I go off my gut, he seems like a pretty good guy overall. I don't see him as being a bad person, and or a malicious person, or he's not. He just doesn't strike me that way. As someone who really has got, it's just not the impression I get. He seems like a pretty good dude, right? But he's making some mistakes that he's going to pay a price for. Bad judgment due to age, bad judgment due to internet clout. So yeah, we were seeing really scary signs already a year ago. And what I mean specifically, that you can see the cardiac inflammation. the labored breathing and the signs of with the activity level he was at. And you could tell observing the face and his breathing that there's signs of very significant cardiac and chest wall inflammation, right? He's not going to live super long. Yeah, at that age, you feel invincible to trade longevity for legendary status. And as a lot of pro bodybuilders have said, they're like, he does not have the genetics to get on the Olympia stage. He just doesn't. His internet fame carried him to those wins. Because bodybuilding is politics. The guy has over 1 million followers, and he is pretty big, you know. A lot of his training is very risky too. A lot of ego lifting. You know, the bad diet he was doing with all the drugs. He's already caused some serious damage. You know, he's already dramatically shortened his life. Like right now, if Sam comes off all the gear, he might need TRT. He comes off all the gear and just goes to healthy eating. He's still probably, you know, shaved 20 years off of his life, even if he undoes it all now. If he keeps going, he could shave 50 years off his life, 40 years off his life. He might not make it to 30. He almost, if he doesn't back down now, I guarantee you he won't make it to 40. You know? But DJ, we don't need to go into all that stuff over there. I do get what you're saying, probably true. But not relevant, really. That's not going to happen. You know what I mean? He won't stop. He did get pro card by winning, exactly. But politics, you know, keep in mind, look at what a lot of the really serious pros have said. Like, he does not have the genetics for this. Politics can carry you a long way to getting that pro card. How Noble Natty's going to explain shrinking when they stop doing the juice. Well, guys, I trained chaining styles. I went from doing all this with the bodybuilding back to, you know, I went back to training like the old school strongman. And, you know, I lost some muscle, but I look thicker, and, you know, right? That's how they want to explain it. Victor Martinez still looks good, you know. Yeah, different dudes handle the gear better than others, and some of those pros use less than others. You know, there is that genetic response. I think a lot of it depends on how much insulin and stuff too. As far as them still looking good, it depends on how much insulin and stuff they used, really. Like, that's really a big deal. But the insulin thing, man, it's so cheap and inexpensive way to just add a massive synergy to people's drug stacks. And especially with the cost of growth hormone, that's why you're seeing guys get so big. Right? When growth hormone reached the prices it's at in the last few years, and then guys can get a hold of the insulin, they're like, dude, that's really all I need. Right? They're just like, test, train, growth insulin. They can do it for pennies at high doses. You know, it's been a game changer. So you're going to see a lot of these guys get real big real quick on tight budgets. You know, it's not like the old days where they had to turn tricks to afford growth hormone. They're playing Russian roulette with their health. Really sad. They really are, Simon. You know, they really are. And I'm not an anti-gear person either. Yeah, Ryan, I discussed it earlier at the start of the stream. We discussed that. I saw the poll this morning, actually. I was waking up. You guys know how I feel about the equipment. I mean, I've given my statements on it. I mean, obviously, he's crazy strong, and it's a crazy feat of strength. I don't like all the equipment. You just can't get behind it. Not worth it all just to look pumped up, right? you know. Especially when it's not even keepable gains, you know. And again, I guess because I haven't discussed stuff in detail, and I probably won't. I always get people who are like, "Blah, you use tons of gear," and I'm like, I didn't. First off, you guys never saw me looking like I've used tons of gear. Second, I'm very healthy at 48 years old. It should kind of be the giveaway, right? That should kind of be the giveaway that maybe Blaha really wasn't like abusing gear. Keep in mind, I was one of those guys in the gear groups. Everyone's like, dude, you guys give such useless advice. Nobody's ever going to gain any muscle with the stacks you guys advocate. Like, you might as well just use creatine. Like, that was the sort of response to, you know, in the gear groups over the years that I was members of and discussed it and gave advice and discussed stuff. Oh, you might want to live, guys. It's longevity. And, you know, I was one of those guys that a lot of the really young guys made fun of. You guys are telling advanced lifters to do cycles smaller than novice cycles. You know. Coach, you have any opinion? I didn't know Eddie was promoting the carnivore diet. I'm going to have to call him out on it. He's going to kill people with that without strength. There is no look for natties. Yeah, I agree, Carol. But that's the other problem for the guys like me and other guys I know, that even the gear stacks we tell enhanced guys to use, dude, if they don't live heavy, it's not going to work. Because you're not going to be able to use gear as a crutch. They're good. You know what I mean? Like, people really get upset. Like, you really just told us to run 300 milligrams a week as a blast. It's like, yeah. Like, there's no point. That's completely pointless. What do you mean it's pointless? Make really good gains. Keepable gains. And your blood work will stay okay. Eddie Hall is turning into an idiot. Yeah, unfortunately. I mean, again, I'm not going to pick fights and stir up stuff with Eddie Hall. But there's things that obviously I don't like. And it doesn't take away from his accomplishments or athleticism or genetics or work ethic. But even I've had some people comment, and I just bite my tongue. He's putting his son up deadlifting. And it's like, you're really going to let your progeny, your legacy, deadlift with that more? Just saying, dude. You're putting him on camera for the world to see deadlifting like that and not teaching him any basic how to deadlift at all. And you think this is going to be, so again, that tells me a lot about Eddie Hall. But what can I say about that? Like, you can't even teach your son to deadlift. And then, like you said, he's going to promote the carnivore diet. I don't know what to say about that. I'm not trying to stir up a fight, though, But, yeah, if he's pushing the carnivore, that's too bad, man. People are going to get hurt from that. Literally claiming he's straight. He got stronger on it. Really, Eddie, so you're going to go pull 505 kilograms now on the carnivore? Is that what you're saying? I think Eddie thinks his form will get better. Yeah, that's not how it works. Benjamin, can a 45-degree back extension be done with heavy weight for low reps? Yes, but you need to build up to that very carefully and very slowly, Benjamin. So you're asking me, can it be done and can there be benefits? Absolutely. Yeah, no, that's a lift that you can get real strong on. There can be benefits. Build it up carefully and slowly. I've straight up seen dudes mog 315 on a barbell. 3 plates on that bar. I've seen it done by some pretty strong dudes. And your back will get very strong. Your glutes will get very strong. Build it carefully. Tyrone says, good call, coach. I was wondering about his son complaining about back pain after his deadlift, and Eddie said, that's normal. Yeah, that's not normal. What? I didn't hear about that part. Tyrone. Man. I mean, what are we supposed to say about that? Like, that's frustrating for me. For me as someone who wants to put out good training information, and I'm not someone promoting mediocrity. I'm the one over here. People got pissed at me in that post. I don't know if you saw my post yesterday. I'm like, I remind people again, when my dad bought Strength Standard, everyone got upset when I said that a healthy young man should squat 500 pounds and do 20 pull-ups. I said that on Facebook a couple of years ago. People got pissed. That's just excessive. I'm like, dude, you guys have seen me do it in my 40s. In the same week before, I've hit a 500 squat and did 20 pull-ups before a few years ago on camera in my mid-40s. So I'm not asking kids to be better than me. I'm saying, man, you're in your 20s, guys. Come on. Raise the bar a little bit. And that's what throws people off, because they're like, God, your squat 500 is going to be fat. No, really? Tell that to my client, Justin. You guys have seen Justin squat over 500 pounds before. Is he fat? They'll pull the genetics. They'll be like, because of his race. Well, I've had white guys do it too, so shut up. Remember when I had Charles squat 505 before on camera, weighing 175 pounds. So no, they can't pull that line either. Really? And he was a drug tested lifter. He was an IPF lifter who has been tested and stuff. I'm not saying testing's everything, but just throwing it out there. It was super wide. It was real wide. No, Charles is crazy wide. He had a 500 good morning the same time he had a 505 squat. Does muscle maturity start to take effect at age 30 or not? Honestly, muscle maturity is about years under a heavy bar. Note what some of the researchers have said on this, even guys like Minnow. It does seem to be a product of significant myofibular growth from heavy lifting for extended years. It'll start taking effect at 30 if you started lifting at 20. If you started lifting really heavy weights at 20, you'll start seeing it at 30. Eddie is more of an entertainer these days. Fitness-wise is probably not something he should seek out. And I agree. I mean, Eddie does make some comical stuff. Dude. His reels are pretty funny. I see them in my feed on Facebook all the time. Maybe Eddie and his son need to hit you up for coaching at this point. Yeah, that'll never happen. I'd do it. I'd fix it. Jason, I'm a big boxing fan. The PEDs in the sport. That's all sports. That's all sports. It's been that way your whole life. You're not going to get away from it. It's competition. Sports are win at every cost. That is the mindset of sports. It's like war. And that is always going to be the mindset in sports. It's never going to go away. Right? To be the best in any sport, people are willing to make sacrifices. That's just the nature of it. I mean, Potted, have you watched it? Have you watched any of the deadlifting? That's part of it. Excessive rounding and swinging and swaying all over the place with huge amounts of rounding the low back, rounding the upper back, hitching while doing it, just complete instability in general. That's what all his deadlifting is looking like. That's having to do on camera. That's like a normal heavy rep for him. It's just, so think about if you could do 3 or 4 really bad things in your deadlift all at the same time. That's what you need to picture. Like you're looking at it as a coach and going, is he going to tear a bicep first or is he going to damage his back first? So it literally looks like if you just told a 10-year-old kid to go deadlift some a really lightweight and didn't tell them anything about it, how to lift, and no form coaching, and they just walked over and just started yanking it up. Literally what it looks like. Like it looks like he's not had any instruction at all of any type. He was just told, go pick that weight up, and just keeps picking it up with no feedback as a kid. So just walking over, bent arms, hunched all the way over, round back, round upper back, round lower back, uneven swinging, the bar swinging out to one side. He just looks like he told the kid, just go pick that weight up. It's never corrected anything. And it's been more than once now. Have you heard the term Brutwick gets termed to describe rounding? How you're talking about interior pelvic tilt? Yes. Subject of great nuance. And as to if you should be worried about it, it's going to depend on the degree of it and if you get pain doing it. That's a very complicated topic, Benjamin, that I deal with as a coach as to whether we're concerned with it or not. So if you're worried about your butt week, we're at coaching level. Help. I cannot agree with that analysis, coach. This is what I thought people answered. I think people seem to be encouraged to this kind of. The first one I saw, that's what it looked like. But I see people seem to be encouraging that kind of terrible form. Yeah. The first pull of his I saw, I feel like my analysis was pretty accurate. That's what it looked like to me. But people seem to be encouraging that kind of terrible form. Yeah. That's pretty cool. Everything man is held to use yellow river. That was kind of my thought. Like when I saw the first deadlift, I'm like, this Eddie Hall just put his son deadlifting like that up on camera for a million people to see. I didn't get it. You know. But Tyrone, that was my interpretation. The first pull, I felt like he had no instruction of any type. The first clip I saw some number of months back, it just came through my feed. I'm like, is Eddie Hall's son? Is Eddie what? It looked like he just told him walk over and pick that weight up. The first one I saw, it was rounded everything, bent arms, and the bar catawampus while he's doing it on the way up. Maybe it's gotten better since then, but that's what I saw. That's what I remember seeing. I was just kind of like, okay, let's hope he doesn't get into injury. Let's hope. I mean, Eddie has a low injury rate. There might be some resilient genes there, but still, you don't want to rely on that. I can't say that I'd recommend it. You know what I mean, guys? I'm going to go ahead and wind this one down, guys. I'll do another one of these later for you, but probably need to hop out of here. In the Facebook. Get some other work done. Scott, I appreciate the super in here. Always helps. And yeah. Take care, guys. I'll talk to you next time.